Imagine if Van Gogh had an Instagram account, or if Guru Dutt had a YouTube channel. Would the Starry Night become a Lightroom preset? Would Pyaasa become a course on healing after rejection? If Guru Dutt were alive today, would he still make Pyaasa? Or would the algorithm ask him to build a personal brand instead? I think the question tells us something deeply unsettling about the internet. Today, we don't just break up, get fired, or quit a once desired job, walk out of a bad marriage or a relationship, and then suffer to doomsday about it. Today, we refurbish our suffering, our pain in aesthetics. We design fancy digital products, ebooks, courses, life coach Instagram pages, and turn that pain into a shiny brand of personal business. We don't wallow in self-pity because time is expensive, and there's enough material on YouTube and Gram to push you out of that episode of empty pool of pity and help you get back on your feet. What we do instead is commercialize and aestheticize our sadness, and in some cases melancholia, to serve as motivation for others out there or just help us pivot our life in a totally different direction. But have we ever asked why? I mean, obviously one reason is money, getting laid off and having a ton of responsibilities to take care of, and content creation looks like a way out. I mean, no one's controlling your hours, your leaves, your salary, and so on and so forth. But besides money, any other reason why we sell a comeback that has to have a sad backstory? Some of us might even say, why not? When the grind gets tough, you keep going. But in this day and age, we don't have to reach that level of boundless depth. This depth has become flattened thanks to fast consumption patterns on social media that say a person who quits his or her job to travel the world will document their life via Instagram, create courses on how to do it, a digital library perhaps, and earn their way to freedom from the monotony of regular life. Now, I'm not saying that this person or anyone else who escapes the 9 to 5 to do organic farming, or women who choose to step out of their marriages and find validation via digital businesses are doing it wrong, or that they don't suffer that level of intense sadness to produce great content. All I'm saying is times have changed really, have they not? Consumption patterns via technology, especially the modern day overflow of algorithms, have become so ingrained in our psyche that we don't even question technology and its overarching presence in our lives today. We are no longer just hyper-aware consumers of mass-produced content, but also performers of it, and sometimes performing our own sad lives. And all this is not just happening in reality today. We live in what the French philosopher Baudrillard called the state of hyperreality. In a hyper-real society, mass media, tech, advertising, and now AI create signs, images, and symbols that replace actual reality to the extent that these copies look and feel more real than reality. So maybe the act of putting yourself out there via your sadness in the current state of hyper-reality makes the effect of that piece of art or content, as we call it today, even more emphasized. If Baudrillard explains why simulations replace reality, another literary theorist explains how that happens. This is where what Roland Barthes says becomes indispensable. Why I bring this French literary theorist into this discussion is because Barthes contributed significantly to the idea of how we understand consumption and culture today. In his seminal work Mythologies, Barthes defines myth as that which takes a sign system, made up of a signifier and the signified, and gives it a new, hidden cultural meaning. The purpose of that myth is now to make artificial political ideologies appear as natural and unquestionable facts. So for example, if we talk about a myth, as per Barthes' understanding in an Indian context, let's take a look at the aftermath of Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala's death. How after Moosewala's death, pictures of the icon found their way on t-shirts, car windows, to become an underground cultural stamp of people who were fans, but stripped the harsh political reality of his death, or the complex, polarizing life of the living political artist. From Barthes' understanding, myths purify reality and make it look innocent. By masking his death under the larger cultural movement of rebellion, freedom of speech, gun culture, and violence in Punjabi rap, the myth shifted the narrative from his death to abstract ideals as the cause for it. This is how Barthes defines how a myth functions in society. If I were to apply the same Barthesian concept of myth to how algorithms feed us what we think and we feel we need to see, an algorithm curates your feed like an organic extension of your own mind, the For You page, when in fact it hides its corporate profit-driven architecture and naturalizes the content making it feel like a universal reflection of your personal taste. And that's why, for someone who's just lost their job, your feed is filled with how to get out of it, because again, it's been naturalized. Now, to go a step further, social media algorithms also tend to thrive on aesthetics. So, like I mentioned examples of Moosewala, for instance, the aesthetics tend to drain the political and historical reality of something and make it clean, depoliticized myth of, say, rebel without a cause, and sell t-shirts and branded merchandise that we may mindlessly buy to perhaps look woke. The algorithm functions like an invisible ideological hand that serves commercial myths so naturally that we mistake corporate engineering for human culture. There's a scene in Andrei Tarkovsky's The Stalker where one of the lead characters, whose name is the writer, talks about the painful angst of being a writer. He says in a scene that, if my books are not going to be read for 100 years after I die, then what's the point of writing them down? But today, that timelessness that came with the angst, or an artistic profession, driven by the devilish desire to be great or profound or be recognized for your art or you would lose your mind, has undergone a massive change. Today, social media has industrialized personal crisis. In various forms of art, say cinema, we've seen icons in Hindi cinema such as Guru Dutt, Kamal Amrohi, Ritvik Ghatak, Meena Kumari literally give their lives to a piece of film because they wanted to do it so badly, so sincerely portray the turmoil of their own mind, the sadness that accompanied them everywhere they went, to the extent that some of them even paid the price of achieving that level of depth in art with their own lives. For example, Guru Dutt did not just direct tragedy, he lived it. His masterpiece Pyaasa is the absolute prototype of an intellectual critique of a commercial society that commodifies art and pain. Dutt battled severe clinical depression, alcoholism, and ended his life tragically at 39. And now, what do we do with a Guru Dutt? We use his black and white reels, clips from his iconic songs to just gain likes. That's what a Barthesian myth does. I'm not saying that we have to go down the same path to achieve what they did. All I'm trying to help recognize is what consumerism and what Mark Fisher calls capitalist realism have done today. So Fisher explicitly talks about how modern society privatizes and commercializes mental distress. He explains how capitalism takes raw, systematic angst and repackages it as a consumer aesthetic, and how all of this aestheticization and normalization of mental distress, personal suffering, has become such a to each his own problem. Therefore, we as people who deal with such problems in varying depths also look at sadness, melancholia, and the conditions that arise from this as something that have to be dealt with clinically. So it's not just the pharma MNCs that profit from human suffering these days, but also the algorithms that sell a hyper-real dream, customized as per our feed, that we feel we need to achieve because everyone else seems to have done it already, and we are left behind in the monotony of our lives. So in times such as these, how do we interpret, understand, or even consume the sadness or suffering of the human condition shown by films, literature, and other art forms that do not resonate with the current climate of algorithmically flattened sadness? If postmodernism states that there is no singular truth out there and that we all have our own subjective versions of it, our own versions, perceptions of reality, sadness, also glorified and recirculated and rehashed, all thanks to the benevolent social media, how do we erase the memory of what a film by Ghatak or a Guru Dutt would do to an audience? Do we dismiss their art form as something that came from a place of madness that many of us in our supremely aware states of mind, thanks to the information dump out there, will not be able to relate to? Why would we relate to the famous Starry Night? What does this Van Gogh painting mean to us in contemporary society? Yes, it's art for most of us, vibrant, done by somebody famous, but also reminds us of photo editing, an AI tool or some such thing that removes this iconic piece from context and generates a myth that resonates with hyperreality today. I mean, Van Gogh must be rolling in his grave when he sees his iconic painting, The Starry Night, used against the backdrop of a photo editing software. For a man whose painting represents the fragile tension between his tormented reality and his profound search for peace, who at the time of painting this Starry Night got himself voluntarily admitted to a psychiatric facility in France after a severe mental health crisis. To see the product of his tormented reality mutilated so that a few thousand people on social media can buy a picture editing software because Van Gogh's Starry Night creates a backdrop of a highly polished software is really something. Similarly, the Russian classical writer Dostoevsky, who faced a mock execution and years in a Siberian labor camp, used that absolute terror to write Crime and Punishment, a novel whose authority not many contest. Or filmmakers like Tarkovsky, Lars von Trier, Guru Dutt, Francis Ford Coppola, Satyajit Ray, who battled immense hardship and psychological fragmentation to capture the actual depth of the human soul in their films. From what we know, Tarkovsky's Stalker was shot in abandoned, toxic hydropower plants in Estonia. The shoot actually caused physical illness to the crew and the filmmaker himself, but he sacrificed his health to capture the psychological despair of post-industrial humanity to create a film that everyone remembers him for. Remember what happened to Francis Ford Coppola, the Godfather director, while he was shooting Apocalypse Now. Not only did he suffer extreme financial distress, he had epileptic seizures on set and allegedly threatened to take his own life thrice. Or several other writers, musicians, and artists from various art forms who experience, if not the same level of mental turmoil, but undergo pain triggered by episodes of socio-political, cultural, or personal change that force them to dig deep into the dark crevices of the human condition to be able to produce something that resonates across time and space. So what has actually happened to all of that boundless depth? The sadness, the melancholia, the kind that produced works we still return to decades, sometimes centuries later. I'm not suggesting that artists must break themselves in order to create something meaningful. That's not the point. The point is that suffering once had permission to remain unresolved. Today, it rarely does. The algorithm is deeply uncomfortable with pain that goes nowhere. Maybe that's why today Guru Dutt's tragedy becomes an Instagram reel. Why Van Gogh becomes an AI filter, why most of our intimate moments increasingly arrive with captions before they've even become memories of substantial material. Because somewhere between algorithms, aesthetics, and attention, our sadness stopped being something we lived. It became something we produced. Because sadness hasn't changed in itself. Human beings have always suffered. We've always loved, grieved, lost people, lost homes, lost wars, lost ourselves. None of that is new. What has changed is time. There was once a distance between pain and meaning, a space in which people mourned, reflected, failed, recovered, and sometimes years later, created something out of that experience. Art did not demand immediacy. It allowed suffering to remain unresolved. Today, that distance has almost disappeared. Pain becomes a post, a reel. Somewhere along the way, we didn't just change the way we tell stories, we compressed the distance between living an experience and performing it. We compressed the time it takes to turn a human life into a consumable product. Social media has actually solved the writer's angst problem by shrinking eternity into a 24-hour algorithmic cycle. So we no longer care if art lasts 100 years. We have surpassed hedonistic nihilism. We just needed to convert into clicks, newsletter sign-ups, and course sales, all of course by tomorrow morning. So maybe the real question is now not about the industrialization of sadness or how social media turns your suffering into content. Maybe it's more than that. Perhaps the greatest luxury left today is not happiness, health, or even peace of mind. Maybe it is the freedom to suffer without feeling compelled to turn that suffering into a story for someone else.